What is going on, everybody? It's Nick Gaschler, otherwise known as GDN Scouting, back here with a new video. As we ring in the new year in the 2022 draft season, it's about to get serious. And thus far, I've watched 50 prospects, and I want to give you my opinion on these 50 prospects. I like a lot of these guys. I think this class has a lot of potential. And we'll get into that as we keep going, and I'm going to walk you through these 50 prospects and tell you about a couple of these guys and what I think they can do. But before we get into it, I just want to keep in mind that this is not my top 50. These are 50 prospects, the first 50 prospects that I watched and ranked. Will 46 through 50 or even 45 through 50 be in my top 50 at the end of the day in April? Probably not. Can guys rise and fall up and down this board? Of course they can. This is the draft. We are here to restart, reevaluate, keep going, and trying to develop our opinion on these guys. So that is where I stand as of now. So without further ado, don't want to take up too much time. Let's get into it. This 41 through 50 section, you kind of have, just to break it down, number 45, Arnold Ebiketie, is going to be the first second-round talent right here. So from 45 up is all second-round talents, in my opinion. Talking about some of these guys from 46 through 50, the three linebackers, I don't really have too much feelings about. Most of them are either not too violent or not great instinctually. In Devin Lloyd's case, you're going to hear about Devin Lloyd a lot. But I don't think he has good instincts. He's really athletic, and that's cool, but you can only get so far with that athleticism, and that's super valued on the NFL level. I get that, but his eyes just really bother me. His run defensibility kind of bothers me as well. It seems like he's going to have trouble being able to defend the run. And when I evaluate linebackers, if you're not a complete linebacker, it's very hard for you to score highly on my board. And I think Devin Lloyd has a lot of upside, and he could potentially be a cool little second-round guy for you. But if you're drafting him in the first round, you're overdrafting him. And the same can be said with Carson Strong, guy from Nevada. Cool arm, great ball placement, but the processing is an issue, the decision making is an issue, the lack of mobility. In this league, if you're not mobile, I'm going to have a really hard time drafting you. And you could go, well, what about Mac Jones? Mac Jones could rip off a run. He was decent. Carson Strong doesn't rip off any runs. His tape is just not as good as I expected or had it hyped as people told me it would be. So these guys are, so like these two, Travius Hodges-Tomlinson, cool little nickel corner, and then Carson Strong are probably like, and Devin Lloyd are probably all like late second round to maybe early third round players. These guys are kind of fourth day three type players. So at the top end of this 41 through 50, you got Ebiketie, you got Kenneth Walker, you got Jordan Davis, who a lot of people are going to rank pretty high, but again, it's really hard to score highly on my board if you aren't a complete defensive lineman, except for one guy that I ranked really highly, which we'll get into a little bit later. But Jordan Davis is going to need to work on pass rushing and motor. He's big and he's cool against the run, but until then, he's kind of rated as a second-round guy for me just because he's not complete. Malik Willis is another guy you're going to hear a lot about. I love Malik Willis. It's in some scenarios, and I hate him in others. It really just depends on the play. I think he has a lot to clean up, but he could end up being a cool little quarterback here. Daniel, let me try and pronounce this right. Daniel Faalele. We're just going to call him Deck the Halls, like Daniel Faalele, like Deck the Halls, so I call him Deck the Halls. Really cool right tackle that I looked at. I'm a big fan of his. I think he has the strength and the size to compete on the NFL level. If he cleans up a little bit of his footwork in the run, he's going to be a real good player. I think he could honestly start day one, and that's kind of where you get into this level. Daniel Faalele is one of those guys that I think could start day one. Arnold Ebiketie, a guy that could be a rotational guy. Kenneth Walker, with his speed and elusiveness, could potentially be up there as well. So that kind of rounds out these last 10 guys rather. And like I said, from Ebiketie up, you have second-round players. So this board is full of a lot of really quality players in this draft. Moving on to 31 through 40, we start with Kingsley Enagbare at 40. He's a guy that has the tools, can definitely develop into a good player right now, but for now his motor and hand technique is kind of pulling him down the board, keeps him as a second rounder. 2 Ohio State cats, Nicholas Petit-Frere out of Ohio State, and then Chris Olave, who you're going to hear a lot about as a top receiver prospect. I like both of them. I just don't think they're as, well, in Chris Olave's case, they're as highly touted as they're talked about. Like, Chris Olave is good, but he's not like great, and we'll get into some great receivers as we truck along here. But Chris Olave is going to stay here at 38 for now. Breece Hall is another running back that I really like. He's probably going to end up as my running back 1. Leo Chenal, 260 pounds, is a beast of a run stopper. If he can learn how to do more in pass coverage, he could be a very good linebacker. Right now he's my linebacker 2. The thing about this linebacker class is it's pretty, like, there's one good guy, and then everybody else just kind of falls down the board. And you saw Devin Lloyd down there, a little bit further down there. Chenal's my linebacker 2 as of now. I think he could be a good second-round guy. Devontae Wyatt is a good player. He's good. He's a well-rounded guy. I just worry about his strength. He's gonna have to build his body up a little bit. Jordan Battle. Interesting safety. He could play strong or he could play free safety. I kind of like him at free safety. He shows good bursts and he shows not so great bursts. Kyer Elam is another guy, kind of the same thing. He's really good in man coverage and he's really good with his ball skills, but he doesn't show a lot of violence against the run, and he doesn't have the deep speed that a lot of these other corners have, so he kind of gets pushed down the board by these influx of the other 5-6 cornerbacks that we're going to have to end up talking about here, but he's still a good prospect. He could be a good late first, early second round type of player. Jaquan Brisker is the same way. I like Jaquan Brisker a lot. I think he's good against the run. I think he can be good in pass. I don't think he's great in pass yet, but I think he can definitely be great with his ball skills, and his instincts are really great. He's my safety 3 as of now. We have 2 first-round safeties that we're going to talk about. And then Roger McCreary, who's a really interesting coverage guy. Like, he's really good in man coverage, but he just lacks violence and physicality. Like, he's not going to come up and make a lot of plays in the run. He's not going to use his hands to jam receivers at the line of scrimmage. That's why he kind of is sitting out of this second round conversation for me. And from we have 30 first round players so far, which is a lot in the first 50 guys that I've watched. So Roger McCreary is that first guy that's not in that first round caliber player. So getting into that 30, from the 21 to through 30 category, we have Fedarian Mathis, who I think is a super underrated defensive lineman out of Alabama. He's a guy that's he popped on tape. I liked what he did in both run and pass. My problem with him is that he doesn't block shit well, and that kind of leads to him not being able to penetrate too well. I think he could develop into a really good guy at One Tech. The same goes with Travis Jones. He's an incredible run stopper at One Tech, but he's not great in terms of being able to stop pass, or being a good pass rusher and being able to get to quarterback. He can make disruptions better than Jordan Davis would necessarily, but he's going to have to develop a little bit there. Travis Jones is one of the most pure, strongest players that I think I've evaluated thus far in this class. He, instead of getting pushed by double teams, or at least stalemating with double teams, he will push the double team back into the backfield and shed blocks to make a run. He's insane, and I love Travis Jones. I think this group of 5 interior defensive lineman agenda is what I call it so far. Him, Logan Hall, and Cameron Thomas are all going to be really good players on the next level, and Travis Jones specifically at One Tech. Lewis Sine, I believe, safety out of Georgia. I really love him. His instincts and his physicality as a run stopper is insane, as well as his coverage skills. He's going to be a really good coverage guy. Once he gets his ball skills figured out, he could end up being a very, very high-level free safety. And then we get into some more quarterback talk. Sam Howell coming in at 27. Sam Howell was such an interesting watch because there's some things that I look at it and I'm like, yes, I love that. That's the best quarterback in the draft type material. And then there are some things where it's like, oh, Sam, what are you doing? He plays too much hero ball. He makes some stupid, boneheaded decisions at times. It really just depends on the play for him, and his talent and his arm strength and whatnot, and his mobility was good enough to get him to 27 in the first round conversation. But I don't know if he's going to be able to take that next step and be a number 1 quarterback in this class. Two offensive linemen here, Trevor Penning and Darian Kinnard. Kinnard is interesting. His violence and his strength is cool. He just is so technically unrefined, and he's so raw that it's really hard to keep him out at tackle and also rank him highly. I think he'd be a much better guard, and we'll get into that conversation as we get there. Trevor Penning's a guy who's kind of the opposite. He has really good technique. His pass technique's insane. He has decent athleticism. There's just he plays super high. There's disparities in the run game for him. It's an interesting guy. He's one of those guys and this is the story with a lot of these guys. There are such good traits, and it kind of starts with Sam Howell here. There's such good traits that I love, but then there are also traits that I don't love, which pull them down the board. And the same goes with DeMarvin Leal. Super highly, I loved his film in 2020. This 2021 film has been not as good. He lacks athleticism, he kind of lacks strength and motor. Like, his effort just kind of decreased, and he does things well, and he shows the ability to be a good defensive lineman. But number one, I don't know where to put him. He's 280, 290. Do you put him at 3-tech, or do you put him on the edge and have him drop weight? It's interesting. I kind of like him at 3-tech. I think he can rush the B gap really well. But he's kind of positionless, and the motor problems is kind of just, it turns them off. It turns me off of him in terms of how I like him. Another quarterback, and him and Matt Corral, the Ole Miss quarterback, who's a little higher on this board, they're going to be battling this entire season for quarterback one, my quarterback one. For now, even though he's the lower-rated player, we saw this last year where I put Zach Wilson ahead of Trevor Lawrence. Kenny Pickett reminds me a little bit of Joe Burrow. I call him Joe Burrow light, because he can do the same things that Joe Burrow does, just not to the extent that Joe Burrow was able to do. But he's a very safe option in a very risky quarterback class. There's a lot of upside players in this quarterback class, and Kenny Pickett is not one of them. He has a good arm, good mobility, good processing, and ability to make good decisions. There's just certain limitations to his game that I don't love as much. But I still think he could be a very good player on the next level. Traylon Burks is a good receiver from Arkansas. He's big, but he can do a lot. I think he's going to be pretty good on the next level. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Deebo Samuel in the way that you can use him wherever you want, and he's going to probably find success. David Ajabo, one of two Michigan edges in this class. David Ajabo kind of fits a 3-4 mold more, and if he can build up his body a little bit, he's going to be a really good player on the next level. So that rounds out 21 through 30. Again, these are all first-round players, and moving forward, these are more mid-range first-round players. And starting with Matt Corral, who's the other quarterback in this class, he's an upside guy, and he has a good arm. He has hit-or-miss accuracy, but is for the most part pretty hit. His processing is going to be kind of concerning. I think he gets a little flustered under pressure as well. I like him as of now, and he's my quarterback one as of now. But Kenny Pickett is really breathing down his neck, and he could end up taking that quarterback one spot. So it's an interesting comparison between those two guys. None of these quarterbacks, I think, are worth taking in the top 10, honestly. And we'll get into that as this process keeps going. But for now, I think they're good, 12 to 15 options. Like Matt Corral would be a good pick then, good value pick there. But for now, that's how it stands. Jameson Williams is going to be a high upside wide receiver too. He's fast and whatnot, but he's a little lazy, and I just don't see him being a wide receiver one on the next level. Tyler Linderbaum, a lot of people's top 10 prospect. He comes in here at 18. I like him, and he's athletic, and he's a good center. He just lacks a lot of physicality and finishing that I like to see in my centers, and just didn't wow me the way I thought he would. He's still a very good player, don't get me wrong, but he's a little lower on this list. Cameron Thomas is exact opposite. He's a guy that really surprised me. And there's a couple of 3-4 defensive ends, hand-in-the-dirt defensive ends that come out of a 3-man front. Cameron Thomas is one of those dudes. I think if you put him at 4-tech or 3-tech and let him go, he's going to attack the B-gap and whoop some people's butts. He's got good hand usage. He's twitchy. He's athletic. He's a good pass rusher. I'd like to see him a little bit more against the run, produce against the run. But for now, Cameron Thomas is a really good player that I think could do a lot on an NFL level of play. 16 is Drake London, and then Garrett Wilson's at 14. These are two receivers that I really love, and it's really hard to figure out who the better player is. For now, I've got Wilson over London just because London has a couple issues with focus drops. His speed isn't incredible, and then the injury that he suffered earlier this year is going to be an issue. Whereas Wilson is really good all around. He just lacks experience out of press man coverage, and we'll have to see how he does there. Both are really good yak guys. Both are really good route runners. You got two high upside options at receiver. I think these are your top two receivers for sure. Coming into this class. 15, the Kobe Dean, sandwiched in between these guys. Good instincts, good run stopper, good pass coverage, just needs to get off blocks a little bit better. And you have a really good Roquan Smith-like linebacker there coming out of Georgia again. Kenyon Green should play tackle, and if you disagree with me, I don't know what to tell you, because this man is so much better at tackle than he is at guard. I like his tape. I think his IQ is super high. He's really good with his assignments and whatnot. He's surprisingly athletic for more of a guard's frame, and who has played guard in the past. I think he's a much better tackle than he is guard, as I said before. Booth is really interesting because he allows too much of a cushion, and there's a problem with that, but I can't figure out what the problem is. He's really athletic, so it's not speed or change of direction. He's somewhat raw to playing the position, so to me it's more instincts. I feel like he needs to be able to catch on to that a little bit better and make a play a little bit better, but his reaction time is really good. He's a great run stopper. He's super athletic. He's great in zone coverage. He grades out as my cornerback 4, though. Yeah, there's 3 other corners that are higher ranked than Andrew Booth, who would normally probably be a cornerback 1 in a lot of other people's classes. At number 11, you got Charles Cross from Mississippi State, one of the, if not the best pass protectors I've evaluated. He's very good at a lot of stuff in pass protection, coming out of that air raid system that Mike Leach runs. But he's also pretty good in run, and he just barely missed my top 10 prospects, but he's a very good player. I expect him to be a top 10 player come April. So then you jump into my top 10 here. You've got George Karlaftis, Sauce Gardner, Trayvon Walker, Darion Kendrick, Kayvon Thibodeau, Ikem Ekwonu, Derek Stingley, Kyle Hamilton, Aiden Hutch, and Evan Neal. Karlaftis is interesting because he is a pretty toolsy pass rusher, and he can make stops against the run. He has a good motor. I just wonder about his athleticism. He plays like he's 250, but in reality he's 260, 270. Could he be better on the inside? Potentially. Is he as good as Trayvon Walker? No, he is not. When I watch Trayvon Walker, he's, again, another 3-4 guy that you put him in a 4-tech or a 3-tech, he's going to go whoop B-gap. Trayvon Walker, I don't really see a glaring weakness outside of his ability to pass rush on the outside. He's going to be a very good player, and he is the best defensive lineman on Georgia. And you can hold me to that. He is the best defensive lineman on Georgia. Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati is sandwiched in between them. Really good long cornerback. He's 6'3" and has arms longer than probably like Taco Fall. He uses them really well, but he's a really good man coverage specialist, but I just there's some worries that I have about him in zone and his deep speed, and we'll see how he ends up coming out, especially with his match against Jamison Williams. I'm recording this before he has that matchup, so we'll have to evaluate the film and see how it feels about that. Darion Kendrick is a guy that I like better than Sauce Gardner. He's my cornerback too. Darion Kendrick is good in man. He's good in zone. He can stop the run. He needs to work on tackling a little bit, but everything's there. The instincts are there. If he clears the off-field issues, he's going to be a very good corner who I think could be potentially a draft steal. Kayvon Thibodeau is at 6. You ask me why? I'm going to tell you because he doesn't have a great pass rush arsenal that a lot of these top pass rushers should. He wins with athleticism. He wins with strength, but I need him to be more nuanced and technical in his ability, especially as a pass rusher. Number 5, Ike Ekwonu, who should also be playing tackle. Meh kick step, but it's gotten better throughout the tape that I watched. But he is an incredible finisher, one of the most violent players that I've ever watched, and he's going to put people on the ground consistently. 4, Derek Stingley. what is there bad to say about Stingley? His injury history isn't great, but as a whole, his technique is super solid. He knows how, he has good instincts. He's good against the run. He has good size. Everything you want out of a cornerback prospect. He is my number 1 corner, probably that I've ever watched. But number 3, Kyle Hamilton. Again, another really all-around really good guy. He gets a little lazy and gets a little maybe scared to tackle. I don't think it's scared. I think he's making business decisions personally, but Kyle Hamilton is a really good guy. The question with him is, how highly is safety valued? He's a number 3 prospect pure off talent, but how highly will he be picked because his position is safety? And then we get into 2 and 1. We've already covered Aiden Hutchinson. I think he's the best edge in the class. He's athletic. He's a good pass rusher. He's a good run defender. He's everything you want. He has such a deep arsenal. He's a really good player in terms of being able to stop everything that an offense does from the defensive line perspective. And number 1, Evan Neal, one of the most physically dominant players that I've ever watched. Neal is good in pass protection. He's good in run protection. I need him to keep his eyes up when he gets to the second level. But other than that, Evan Neal is going to be a really good player on the next level at left tackle. So those were my top 50 guys, and I tried to cover them as quickly as I could. It's a big class, and we're going to have more to go, but I watched 50 prospects, and I ranked 50 prospects. So if you enjoyed this video, want to see more videos like this, make sure to like and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it, and thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to share, and yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Next film session is coming soon, so I'll see you guys later. Peace out.